Hi, viewers. Thanks for joining me today. I am here to talk about something that's been an issue in my life or was an issue for a very long time. Many of you are already triathletes, but there might be some of you who are not triathletes. Maybe some of you have never even done any kind of a race at all, such as a 5K or some sort of a bike um, event, or maybe you were never a competitive swimmer or anything like that. I know there are a lot of people who come from different backgrounds in life, competitive sports, maybe soccer, basketball, volleyball. But I think a lot of times, from what it seems, a lot of sports, as you play them and you get a little older, maybe high school or especially college, I find that from what it seems like, many people start to almost feel bad about their own body if they're overweight at all. Many people are muscular and maybe they're a little bit heavy because they're muscular, and they don't really do body composition testing, but because they're bigger than other people, unless they're a football player, I think women in particular almost feel ashamed of their bodies. I am one of those people. I grew up from a very tall family, very big boned, wide frames, a lot of muscle. Um, and I grew up, um, I was one of the shortest people in my family, and I'm 5'8". And I thought, even though I wasn't a competitive athlete, by the time I got to high school, I had already been kind of made fun of a little bit for my height, but also for my weight just being kind of a thicker build. And I was only about 150 pounds when I was 15 years old. And at the time I was 5'7", so not quite full grown yet. 5'8". I think I was probably right around 160, 165 pounds, and I already started to feel bad about myself. Now, mind you, I was not athletic. I did not play competitive sports growing up. And I was muscular, but not super muscular. So I probably did have a body composition that was a little bit more on the cushy side, but I certainly was not obese. I certainly was not really even overweight, but in my mind, I thought I was. Now, fast forward to years later, um, when I did gain a lot more weight, I worked in the food industry. I ate just junk all the time. We could eat for free at the restaurant I worked at. I gained a lot of weight. And then when I got a little bit older, I started drinking heavily. So I drank a lot. I smoked, and I only worked out because I realized that I was overweight. So for years, the only reason I would work out is literally because I felt ashamed of my body size. I got up at one point to being a size 18. And I think at that point I was around 215 pounds. So on 5'8" frame, 215 pounds. I did not do any body composition testing, so I have no idea what my body fat was like at that point. All I know is that I recognized that I did not like what I saw in the mirror. Now, that is not to say that someone can't be 5'8" and 215 pounds and be strong. I know that I was not strong at that point because I literally only did physical activity while waitressing. Yes, that is a lot of walking and carrying things, but I did not, I didn't have a job that was super physical, and I didn't have, working out. I wasn't like lifting weights and stuff like that. So I didn't have a whole bunch of muscle at that time. So, is it possible for a 215-pound female that's 5'8" ish to be strong and potentially athletic? Well, yeah, it is, but I wasn't. And I knew that I needed to do something about it. So, what I would do is I went through this vicious cycle of, okay, I'm going to eat well and I'm going to cut back on my drinking, and I would do okay for a little while. And eating well was always some fad diet, like, going Atkins or something like that. And then I would, go running, even though I literally smoked a pack a day and I could hardly run. But I would try to run because I knew I needed to burn calories. I had no idea what I was doing. I was in my early 20s. A friend of mine got me to join her gym, so I would go, and she kind of taught me how to use the machines. I would go on the elliptical next to her, the treadmill next to her, or I would, do some of the weight lifting machines, like the resistance machines and stuff. And like I said, I literally had no idea what I was doing. One thing I did know that I liked was swimming, and that gym there was a pool there. So I would swim for fitness. And a lady saw me swimming, and she was a personal trainer there. And she told me that I should do a triathlon because she's like, well, you know how to swim. You should do a triathlon. Um, and when she told me, I said, what is, I kind of knew what a triathlon was, but I'm like, what is the distance? And she's like, well, the swim is, a half mile and the bike is like 12 miles. And then the run is it's only a 5K. And I'm like, well, what's a 5K? And she said, oh, it's only 3.1 miles. And I was like, are you kidding me? 3.1 miles? I can't run that. And again, at the time she was inviting me, she was being very kind. But I, at the time, was so intimidated by even just the fact that I was going to have to run 3.1 miles that I was like, no, I don't think so. Plus, there was no niggle in me that was just like, hey, you should do a triathlon. I thought it was nice of her to invite me because she was like I said, she was a personal trainer, but she was an Ironman. She was a breast cancer survivor. She was super fit. And I was like, wow, I'd love to look like her. So again, the self-image issues that we have, for me, I had poor self-image, but also I really truly was in bad physical shape as well, being a smoker and a heavy drinker and eating like crap. So I would lose, 10, 15, 20 pounds, put it back on. It was just yo-yo, vicious cycle. And I never felt good about myself. And when I started to eat badly, I would stop going to the gym because I felt like I'm not going to waste my time here. I'm not going to work out. Let's be honest. I'm going to be fat for life. I had that idea in my head that I was going to be, no matter what I did, that I was just going to end up being a fat person. Again, I am not trying to shame anybody who is overweight. We are all at different points in our lives. People can be healthy and fit at all different weights. But I personally knew where I was at that time, that I had too much body fat, not enough muscle, could barely run a mile, was just miserable, and I needed to do something about it. But I didn't care enough about myself at the time to do anything about it. So I had my first baby, didn't work out at all during that pregnancy. I had a 10-pound, 1-ounce baby, and gained a ton of weight. When I delivered, I was 236 pounds. I had gotten pregnant at a point when I had just lost some weight. So I think I was like around in the low 190s when I had gotten pregnant. So from like 193-ish to 236 delivering my baby. And then had the baby and went back to just eating junk and not working out and whatever. It didn't lose a whole heck of a lot of weight. I was still over 200 pounds when I was a year postpartum. So I joined a gym at that point, started swimming again, and was just kind of like, okay, back to the same old, got to go to the gym, got to try to eat better. I really didn't know what I was doing though. I was just like, well, I'm going to try to cut calories because that's what people do, right? They cut calories. Going to the gym. Now, the big difference in that point in my life is that I found group fitness, and I loved group fitness, and it was accountability and structure, and I needed those two things in my life. So I really embraced group fitness, and almost everything I did at the gym besides swimming was group fitness. And I did lose a pretty significant amount of weight. I wouldn't say I got into great shape, but I lost probably, I don't know, maybe like 15, 20 pounds in the next year and a half. So I was kind of okay with where I was at, being around, I think maybe 190, and was just like, okay, this is good enough. I knew I was going to probably have another baby, so I was really not going to be obsessive over it. And I did get pregnant again. And when I had that second baby, is after I had him is when I decided that I really wanted to do a triathlon, that I just wanted. I was going to turn 30 that year, and I was like, okay, bucket list, I'm going to do this. I know it's 3.1 mile run. This lady told me all about this race. I'm going to actually do it, and I might not be able to run that whole thing, but I'm going to walk it, whatever I have to do. I want to do it. And so this crazy thing happened in my brain that went from, you're going to be fat your whole life, you're unhealthy, you're failing at losing weight, you can't do anything good, you can't do anything right, you're going to be like this forever. I went from that mindset to, I have to swim, I have to bike, and I have to run because I want to cross the finish line. The focus came completely off how much weight I was losing, whether or not I was losing weight, and moved on to what do I have to do to cross the finish line. Now, a couple different things happened over the course of this training. So I think it was a total of 12 weeks of training for a sprint distance triathlon. And over the course of that 12 weeks, I made friends. I met some people in the pool. I met some people out on a bike trail. I started talking to people, meeting up with people. So it was good to have camaraderie, so to have some friendship. Another thing that happened is I really had a good time. I thought it was fun what I was doing. I really liked the structure, and it just made me feel good. It made me feel good about myself. I'm very type A. It was like check off the box. I did this. I did this. Okay. And the last thing is I stopped thinking about my weight. As a matter of fact, I think I stopped weighing myself altogether. I didn't care anymore about how much I weighed. All I cared about is doing the things I needed to do to train for that race. Now, something else interesting happened during that training is that when I got to race day, I weighed myself and I had lost weight, of course, because I was swimming and biking and running and, doing cardio. I wasn't really weight training at the time, I don't think. But still, all that effort made a difference, and I lost some weight. Was I still over what the weight I would like to be? Yes. I believe on race day for my first race, I was 195 pounds. Across that finish line, that was a sprint distance race, so 750-meter swim, which is about a half mile. And then I believe it was a 12-mile bike and a 5K, 3.1-mile run. I did it, and it was 2 hours. I didn't have a fancy bike. It was just a cheap, mountain bike that I got from, big box store. But I did it and I had so much fun. I was like, this is the way to work out. Like, I don't care anymore about specific weight loss or whatever. I want to do triathlon. I want to train. It was so much fun. So the whole point here is for those of you who might be struggling, maybe you've never done a triathlon, and I'm not saying everyone has to do a triathlon, maybe a 5K or, some sort of a bike event or a swimming event if you like swimming. But triathlon in particular is what I'm talking about because that is my experience. So I, that day, went online and signed up for another race. And since then, that was 10 years ago. And I am like, I'm always thinking about what try I'm going to do next. I've trained through pregnancies. I raced 7 weeks postpartum. I have done it's done so much for me. I've done so many things that I feel like good about, in my life. And I've made sacrifices, but the accomplishments that I did, there was weight loss involved because that was like a byproduct of the training. But taking that focus off losing weight, I think sometimes we need to do that for ourselves. We need to stop thinking about losing weight and try to find something that is conducive to losing weight, but is a lifestyle. So that's just a thing, as triathlon is not just a weight loss strategy. It is a lifestyle. If you go to the gym and you're working out and your goal is to lose weight and your goal is to build muscle and it doesn't happen, what's the lifestyle in that? Triathlon being a lifestyle is something that you embrace it and then everything kind of moves around it. And if you lose weight, it's like, oh, well, that's part of that. That just kind of happened. I have intentionally tried to lose weight a few times throughout my triathlon training. It was off season, so it wasn't like there were any upcoming races. One of those times in particular was shortly after having a baby, and I knew I needed to kind of buckle down on trying to drop some weight. And then if you've seen my other videos, I did drop a pretty significant amount of weight from the off season 2019 to 2020. And I knew that I wanted that because I knew I was done having kids and that I needed to try to, lean down a little bit and get into a better body composition. Now it's still for the sake of triathlon, but it's on a different level because I've kind of gone into it far enough now. But certainly if I don't lose the weight, I don't ever like beat myself up over that anymore. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, it is what it is, because my body is strong and my body is capable. And that's one of the things that I love about triathlon is that you go to a triathlon. A lot of people think triathlon and they think Ironman. They think, these long distance races. And Ironman is 2.4 mile swim and a 112-mile bike ride and a 26.2 mile run, all in one. It's 140.6 miles all in one race. Um, I have signed up for my first one. I have not done one yet. Am I not a triathlete because I haven't done an Ironman? No. Triathletes are just people who swim, bike, and run. That's a race. So there are short triathlons and there are very long triathlons. Just because you don't have the time or the desire to do something crazy long like an Ironman doesn't mean you can't be a triathlete. I met a man once upon a time who was obsessed over the idea of being an Ironman. And he's like, well, I can't do that yet because I don't have the time to train. But he had never done any triathlon before. And I go, well, why do you have to do an Ironman? Like, why don't you just do a local sprint? And I told him about a local sprint, and guess what? He did it. And he's a triathlete now. And he was happy that he got that experience of being a triathlete. So, can you sign up for a local triathlon? There are even minis. There's one around me. I've done it 4 times. Let's see, it's a pool swim. So, if you're afraid of open water, there are triathlons that are done in pools. This is only 250 yards. So, that's not anything crazy. I don't think so, anyway. 250 yards, and then a 10K bike. So, 6.2 miles bike and a 2 mile run. There are a lot of people who run walk. That's the one I did at 7 weeks postpartum. Yeah, there's people who run walk. There's people who walk the whole way. There's people who swim from one side to the other, grab the wall, take a little break, swim back, take a little break. There's people of all walks doing it. But you know what? They're getting it done. They're doing it for themselves. It's still an accomplishment. And when they're done, they're triathletes. That's a title they earn. And like I said, people of all body types. There's people who are big and tall and muscular, people who are slim, skinny. There's kids, there's older people in their 70s and 80s. There's people who are postpartum like me. I nursed my baby and went over to the start line. There are curvy bodies, there are plump bodies, there are all kinds of different shapes of bodies, and they're all out there celebrating what their body can do. And that is why I love triathlon. That isn't a thing, that is a way for you to celebrate what your body can do. So there's also a group if you're female and you're considering doing a triathlon. If you're 165 pounds or more, there is a division called Athena. And so Athenas actually weigh in before the race, 165 pounds or more on race day, you have to be. And then you're eligible for awards in that division in and of itself. So you won't be compared to people in like your age group. You'd be compared to other Athenas. So that's another awesome way to celebrate what your body can do. And there's actually a group on Facebook that's an Athena group. It's just awesome to be able to take part in things like that. I am kind of at the bottom borderline of Athena right now. I anticipate by this summer I probably will be below the weight cutoff. But again, this is just part of my journey and where I'm at right now. If you're a person who's maybe thinking about doing a triathlon and you're like, I don't know where to start, like, what do I do? You can go online. There's a website called tryfinder.com, and trifind.com. And you can look for local races around you. You can put in your city and then it'll pull up, or your state, and it'll pull up races in your area. It might be not as much for 2021 right now just because of COVID, because I think some races are waiting to put their dates out there. But you can do that. I don't know how to swim. Maybe that's a problem. Well, you can find local swim lessons. There are a lot of great people, teachers, coaches. If you can swim, but you need a little bit more help, there are masters swim teams. So you can go to usms.org and look for a local masters team that's just 18 and up swim team. You don't have to compete in meets and you don't have to know all the strokes. You can just go and swim if you already know how to swim and you want a little bit of structure and a little coaching. Maybe you know how to swim, but you don't have a bike. Well, guess what? Don't go buy a triathlon bike. Don't go buy some fancy bike. I did my first one-on-one from a big box store. It was $100. You know, you can buy a used bike. You can buy any bike will do. Borrow a bike, you know, get a bike from a big box store, or you know, service the one that you have already sitting in your garage. Don't think that you have to go out and spend a ton of money. Get some good running shoes. Any old bike will do, and then be able to swim. And that's all there is to it. But I highly encourage anybody who, especially if you feel like you have, you know, body image issues, to try to do a triathlon and see what happens and see how good you feel about yourself when you cross that finish line. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Please give it a thumbs up, show your support by liking me, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this, and we'll see you next time.